Hello, chicken lovers. Let's just jump right in, shall we? I will be doing a voiceover for this video as there is just so much information you need to absorb during the video that it doesn't make sense for me to do this live. By now, I can assume you have completed the quest beneath Cursed Sands and you know where Raids 3 is located. So I'm not even gonna go into that. Just straight up Raids noob guide on how to complete it. I will say this at the very start, this guide is meant for solo raids. The mechanics of the team raids are oftentimes similar, but some of the times there are added mechanics in, so if you're planning to do your first raids in teams, look out for those extra mechanics, okay? Okay, this video will be, I wanna say around 40 or 50 minutes long, I don't know that yet. And I will try to explain everything as detailed as possible. I will likely still miss some information, so if I did miss something, please let it know in the comments so people can read that as well and pick up on extra tips. I also put about 50 hours into making this video, so any of this helped you out, all I ask is that you spend few seconds to like this video. Let's start with the inventory. Now the very first thing about any of my inventory, any of my gear, my stats, is that you don't have to have the same exact thing. It's absolutely fine to switch things around. What I do want from you is to have a stab weapon, whether it's Kephri's partisan, leaf bladed sword, dragon sword, maybe if you're rich you can even go with abyssal dagger. Next thing I want you to have is the best range DPS you can possibly get, and the best magic DPS you can get. My setup is meant to be as low as you can reasonably go to complete level 50 invocation raids. If you have upgrades to my gear, good, use them. You need all 3 combat styles in raid to efficiently complete it, so for my range switch, I brought rune crossbow with ruby bolts enchanted and diamond bolts enchanted. Now, if you have the time and the money, I would highly recommend crystal bow here. It could offer you more sustainable DPS than rune crossbow. If you're an Iron Man, you can also bring, I guess, magic short bow with rune arrows. Anything other than that I wouldn't recommend. I'm not even gonna talk about blowpipe, even though yes, it is 5 million GP, but I guess if you have that, bring it as well. I am quickly gonna go over my stats. As you can see on the screen, pretty much every combat stat is just 70s, and this is for me personally the most reasonable starting point for raids. The higher you are, the better it is. I don't have piety on this account, but that does help out a lot. Now for my mage switch, I bought Iban staff with the mystic, one of the most welfare setups you can have. If you have the money, take Garims. If you have the money, take Trident, even occult necklace or god capes. Anything that boosts your magic accuracy will help. As we are gonna see later on in the video that the setup I have tends to splash on some occasions. For my melee setup, I brought only Kephri's partisan, a reward you get after completing Raids 3 quest, and a dragon dagger. Now another point, as we are later also gonna see, I will be lacking severely in my melee DPS, as I did choose range as my main setup. So if you have something like Abyssal Whip, something like Dragon Scimitar, I would recommend you sacrifice a shark in your inventory for that melee DPS increase. Some things you could swap here are, I bought Arctic Cloak because it gives both stat bonus and magic accuracy. You could swap this out for Fire Cape, you could swap it out for God Cape, maybe even a Skill Cape. And lastly, I brought Brimstone Boots with me as I felt this would round up the gear perfectly, as it does offer bonuses on stab attacks on melee, which will be your main attacks, and also gives magic and range accuracy. Now at the time of making this video, the boots cost almost 600k, and it is the most expensive item on my gear setup, so if you wanna go even lower, you could swap this out with Dragon Boots or Rune Boots, or even Snakeskin Boots. For the ring slot, I didn't really have anything to pick for me personally, and I really wanted this to be as low as possible, but you can replace this with Treasonous Ring if you have to spare 250k, as the imbued version is best in slot stab accuracy. You can swap the ring out with Berserker Ring, Archer's Ring or Brimstone Ring if you wanna go even more expensive routes. If not, Explorer's Ring is one of the few rings that gives prayer bonus, so pick that. And lastly, for my supplies, I picked few brews, few boosting potions and some prayer potion with sharks. Again, you can swap this around. If you feel like you're running out of run energy, go with the extra stamina potion. Even though I personally don't think it's even necessary to bring staminas into raids, but I see even some players doing normal raids who do bring staminas. And another thing, in 3 out of the 4 rooms you have chance of getting poisoned, so maybe anti-poison could be something for you. If you don't want small favor, Gothic Rest is a great item to bring into raids as it works as an anti-poison and healing in one inventory slot. Strawberry baskets will heal you up to 25 HP per inventory slot, pineapple pitches if you're an Iron Man, and so on. Okay, I think that covered everything. Okay, let's move on to invocations. First you're gonna make a party and go to your invocations tab. Now, the very first invocation I added for this run was a soft core run. If you don't feel comfortable enough with this invocation, you can go with persistence, and that will give you a total of 5 attempts in raids instead of 3 we have with soft core run. Honestly, if you won't be able to complete the raids within 5 attempts, I highly recommend you just restart and go again. Now, today we're not gonna take this, but once you get more comfortable with raids, you can start adding timers to it. So all the clocks you see right now, like walk for it, jog for it, and so on, are timers you have to beat within raid to get bonus invocations. Today we're not gonna pick those, but something to look forward in the future. The next thing, and again something we're definitely not gonna pick, is the Helpful Spirit debuff. As you will see later on in the video, the Helpful Spirit is one of the most OP things in raids, and the reason you as a noob will likely complete raids, as it offers so many supplies that could help you out, so we don't touch these invocations right now. Next up, Walk the Path. Now, I have seen people have 2 completely different opinions on this invocation. I would like to think of it as this. Walk the Path invocation is like visiting your boss's office. You don't really know what to expect. It could be good or it could be bad. But if you solve the problem correctly, it benefits you in a great way. However, today we're not gonna use that because we're learning and no boss is gonna bother you when you're learning. This also goes both ways. Next up, we have an invocation called Quiet Prayers, where all your protection prayers will be 90% effective. Now, disabling 10% of your prayers might not seem a lot, but if you're doing 45-minute raids, that 10% adds up to a lot. Sometimes even 3 or 4 brews, honestly. And those brews might be difference between you completing it and you failing short. We're not taking this. Now, the invocation we will be taking is Kephri's eggs. If you don't know how the eggs in Kephri's room work, it doesn't matter how many eggs Kephri lays down, as long as you pray from range, you will always, and I mean always, take 0 damage. So this one is good addition to pick as you starting invocation. And the other invocation about Kephri will be that the dung Kephri spills out will be twice as potent, meaning Kephri will double the dung thrown at you. The good thing about this is if you stand on specific tiles on the room, this has absolutely no effect on you at all when doing solos, and I will go into detail later on why this is good. And last but not least, we are gonna activate Zebak's blood magic, as its overall effect has almost no downsides. The most you can do is take 6 or 7 damage and make Zebak heal 6 or 7 HP. That's it. And occasionally you will see blood cloud that can be easily avoidable. And that's it. Those will be our starter invocations. Now, I'm sure there are other options for starting out, and every player feels like they are more comfortable with different invocations. But if I was starting PVMer, this is what I would pick, as all of these invocations have almost no downsides to clearing the rooms you're about to face. Okay, I guess it's time to enter raids. Let's do this. Now, first things first, before you even think about starting raids, bank everything, take out only your pickaxe, make a random party and enter the raids. Then you have to go into this room, which is Akkha's puzzle room, and deposit your pickaxe. Once you've done that, you lead the raids and now everything is set up. This is done so you don't have to bring your pickaxe with you when you enter the raids, as rune pickaxe will be more efficient than bronze pickaxe. If you have the dragon one, bring that. Good. Okay, let's get started. The very first thing I do is take a sip of my antidote and stamina potion. This isn't absolutely necessary, just a small quality of life improvement. Our raid order will be in this form: Zebak, Kephri, Akkha and Papa. Why I picked this order for beginners is as I feel Zebak and Kephri are the easiest room, and I want you to get to that helpful spirit after completing your first 2 rooms and get those salts and supplies to make the rest of the raids faster and easier. We will start with Zebak's puzzle, and in the puzzle all you have to do is complete this small agility course to the other side. Fill up your water container from the waterfall, go back to the middle of the room while dodging the spikes and left click on the bomb. If you take no damage from the spikes, you will heal the bomb 100 health. If you do take damage, you will heal less. As soon as your first run is completed, a crocodile will spawn, and its entire purpose is to drain the palm of the HP bar. So you defeat the crocodile. As you can see from here, I'm not doing a very good job of it, so here is where higher magic accuracy will come into play, but that's okay, that's okay. Now for me personally, the 2 easiest agility courses in the puzzle are both on the south side, but, and it's a big but, all 4 courses can be completed with 1 click. What I usually do in this situation is wait until the spike closest to me goes in and then make a run for it. There are more detailed guides for it, but the overall picture is that you want a running start, so as soon as the spikes pull in, your character is already running towards the middle. As you see on the picture, green tiles are good, red tiles are bad, and when the green poison on the ground lines up with the spikes being at the right position, aka pulled in, that's when you make the run. The more practice, the more a feel for it you get. I did take some damage there, but once you get used to it, this room takes a maximum of like 50 seconds to complete. Let's continue with Zebak, our first demi-boss. Zebak has 2 main attacks and 2 special attacks. Now, since I got a really lucky 100 hit on my ruby bolts, it immediately activated the first special attack, which was the waves. If you done Dragon Slayer 2, this is very similar. If you done Kingdom Divided, there is something similar in that as well. The entire purpose of the special attack is to find a spot that doesn't contain the waves. That's it. Don't also step on the yellow puddles. That is bad paths. The second special attack is one that most people struggle with at the start, including me. I messed this phase up so many times, it's cuckoo. This is due to Jagex clunky mechanics and definitely not because I am bad at this game. Jokes aside, I do feel like this is the only room in all of raids where you could get screwed over by RNG mechanics, and that's also one of the reasons I always start with this room, because you just never know when you might get one-shotted, and it feels a lot easier to start over 4 minutes into the raids than 40 minutes. So what the second special attack does, as you just saw, Zebak will throw out 3 boulders and water jugs. Your goal is to aim the water jugs towards the boulders and clear the path behind them from yellow puddles, so you can hide behind the boulders, because about 3 auto attacks after Zebak throws the boulders out, he will start shaking up the ground and you end up taking constant damage that cannot be avoided until you respawn at the lobby. The best way to solve this is just to find the jug that is closest to the boulders and push it into the rocks. If you can't find one, there is also one single panic tile at the corner of the room, as you can see right here. In this panic tile you will take about 40 damage, but you will survive. Again, it's completely understandable you failure, trust me, everybody did, but practice makes perfect. And we'll end the fight off with 2 special attacks Zebak does. If he throws those clunky greenish black boulders at you, that's the range attack, and if he throws the red water jugs at you, that is the mage basic attack. He will randomly switch between the 2, and he also has a melee attack if you get too close to it, so try to avoid that because it could one-shot you. Zebak, however, will not use melee attack during special attacks. Once Zebak reaches 20% HP bar, he will activate super speed mode, where he will no longer perform special attacks and instead just increases the speed of his basic attacks. How to take 0 damage in this phase is to look at this hit splat at your character. Just look at your character only. Once you see the 0 on your character, then you swap prayer to the opposite sides. So here I see the magic attack coming towards me. I only swap to protect from magic once I see the 0 hit splat on my character, and that guarantees that I don't take any damage. And lastly, we did activate blood magic, which occasionally a blood cloud will appear that tries to leech life off you. Make sure you just run the opposite side of where it spawned and you're good to go. If there was one way to describe this room, it would be fight caves with chat. You have a range spray, you have a mage spray, and you have healers. Only difference here is there are 2 special attacks added in between the basic attacks. Congratulations, you completed your first room. You're an actual gamer now. Okay, next up we have Tongue Queen Kephri, but before that we need to complete another puzzle. So let's get started. I will show you the solution to all the puzzles, so don't worry. First up we have the memory puzzle. Here you just have to repeat back what you saw when you press the button. That's it. Secondly, we have the obelisk puzzle. Now, this is just pure trial and error. There is no thinking here. The goal is to get all 6 obelisks to light up in correct order, and the order will always be random every time you enter this room. That's it. Now, for the third puzzle, if you ever played Dungeoneering back in the day on original Runescape, you know what this is. Instead of going into detail how this puzzle will work, I will instead put a link in the description. Please go check it out. It solves this puzzle for you, so you don't have to think. As you can see from here, I just put the Google Doc what squares are lit up from me in game, and then it throws me back the solution. Now all I have to do is walk on those tiles in whatever order I want, and the puzzle is solved for me. Easy. Next up we have a counting exercise. Now if you can count up to 50, you are already halfway there. If not, well, maybe raids isn't meant for you. Firstly, you inspect the tablet and it throws you a number. In my case it's 29. Now each picture corresponds to a specific number. I'll put the picture with the values on the screen. So for instance the boot is 9 points. The I or 1 I guess is 1 point, and so on. So in total I have to get 29 points. Easiest solution for me is to get the 9 points 3 times, which gives me 27, and then I click the double once and the total value comes to 29 and the puzzle is completed. Pro tip for this as well, the bottom row closest to the tablet will always 100% be 31 and that will never change. So let's say your number is 35. A quick way to do the puzzle is to run across the bottom row to get 31 and then find on the corner a 4 and voila, puzzle solved. And for last puzzle, it's quite literally a puzzle pieces put together. You have to find the corresponding picture on both sides to make it light up, and that's it. The same hieroglyphs you saw before apply here as well, like boots, birds, utensils, 1 diamond star, and so on. What I like to do is the 3-2 method, where I just look at the 3 pictures on one side once I enter the room, and then find the same 3 pictures on the other side, and then repeat the process again but with 2 pictures. In groups you have to organize better because you can't run across, but in solos they made it easier for you, so half the puzzle is already completed once you enter. Now you can skip puzzles here. Every time you complete the puzzle, a door on the opposite side of the room will open up, so you can kinda zigzag through the maze and you don't have to complete all 5 puzzles, instead you can only complete 3 in total to pass the test. Okay, puzzles completed, let's walk into Kephri. First things first, equip your Keris Partisan as it has special effect against scarabs in the terms of accuracy and damage, and Kephri is a scarab. Drink your super strength and attack, and before you go into the room, mark the tile I am about to stand on. Now the reason we activated the invocation called Blowing Mud is because what that does is the number of players targeted by the tongue you see is increased to 2 instead of 1. But since we're doing solos because we don't have friends, it still does 1 tongue row right there, and since we're standing on the special tile, what will happen in the near future is the tongue will start to stack on top of each other instead of filling the entire room. So we'll always have access to the entire room and won't get cut off. The second invocation we did is Lively Larva. The reason this one is free is that no matter how many eggs are spawned in the room, whether it's 10 or 1000, you will still take 0 damage as long as you pray range. Now, as soon as the first phase of the shield is down, you will move on to destroy this ranged scarab. Don't worry about the swarms right now, there are more advanced tactics to make sure Kephri will not get her shield back, but we want the basics, and yes, that means a little longer in the room. Once we get the basics done, we will move on to advanced. As you can also see, we have these scarabs that between phases will fly towards the tile your character is standing on, and if you don't move in few seconds, they will deal up to 30 damage to you. So if there is one thing to take away from this room is that always constantly keep moving, whether it's while you're on Kephri or between phases. While on Kephri, the move is simple. You attack once, you move back. You attack once, you move back, and you keep repeating that. Sometimes you get dunked on, but as soon as you stand on the specific tile marked green, nothing bad will happen to you. Sometimes you can get in 2 attacks before you have to move in 1 square. But if you're not confident enough in yourself, just use the same principle. Attack once, move back. Attack once, move back. Once the second shield is down, this is the most important part of Kephri's fight. You have to destroy the mage scarab as soon as it spawns or you will get 1 hit. During normal raids, the mage scarab can hit up to 60s or even 70s if not prayed correctly, but it deals 0 damage if you get the scarab's HP to 0 as soon as possible. What the mage scarab does is build a charging attack, and once that reaches full, it does 1 single massive damage attack. Once the mage scarab is first and foremost focused down, you do the same for melee scarab. Now, yes, it can also hit very high, we're talking 20s and 30s if not prayed correctly. This is the only time you take your range prey off because the melee scarab has higher DPS than the smaller egg scarabs. You with me here? I hope you are. So you remove both scarabs as fast as possible, and from now on it's just smooth sailing. You repeat the same process again. You attack, you move 1 step back, you attack, you move 1 step back. And you shouldn't in theory take any more damage in this fight. Once the third shield is down, feel free to use any special attacks you have, as in this phase Kephri has the least amount of resistances. If you see me struggling, it's because I'm not bad at the game, it's Jagax's fault, okay? Relax, jeez. So remember, phase 1 range scarab, phase 2 magic and melee scarab in that order, and phase 3 is just a shield, and that's it. You see, Kephri dunked us so many times, and now that the green tile is covered in dunk as well. All you have to do now is just when you get dunked, you move 1 square south and repeat the same process over and over again. Congratulations, 50% of the rooms are now completed. You know what? Let me take a sip of my water because this is not easy for me as well. Give me a second. Okay, let's continue. This is my favorite part, the supply run. Talk to the spirit and you will get 3 different options. Now, if you look at our inventory, what would you pick here? I guess you can kinda get what the options are, but I'll go briefly over them. The yellow ones are soda brews but better, the pink ones are super restores but better, and the salts that look like, I guess, gold dust and brown paper are overloads, but you guessed it, they are better. Now, since we are medium level account, there is no doubt we're taking the one with the salts. Yes, we don't need 6 salts, as one dose will last you 8 minutes, so one of the 6 salts will get you through 16 minutes of combat. But we do need them to be able to complete the next 2 rooms and the final boss, so even though some supplies will go to waste here, like the 4 extra salts, this is the best option out there as salts are just so overpowered and beneficial to us that you almost never take any other option. Also, once the other 2 rooms are completed, we will likely take the life option to replenish our healing supplies, and it contains Ambrosia, the most OP item you have ever seen, but we'll get to that later. Okay, our 3rd room will be Akkha. Now this is the reason why we brought our pickaxe before we started the raid. In this room, well, how can I describe it the best? Mornings ends part 2, but superior. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. Essentially, all you have to do is direct the light from the beam to the shield Akkha, and that's it. Once you do that, the obelisk in the middle becomes vulnerable and you can mine it. Once you mine enough of it, the HP reaches 0 and the room is completed. Now, mining level actually matters in this room and also the pickaxe you are using. So if you have 85 mining and dragon pickaxe, you can complete this room with only a single puzzle. Unfortunately, I have neither of those, so it took me 3 puzzles to complete it. There is set amount of puzzles here, so it's not random, and the more you visit this room, the more you start to see the puzzles even before you enter it. You can pick up the mirrors, direct them, and so on. One tip I do have is that you face diagonally in certain directions and place the mirrors down. The mirror will immediately face the same exact diagonal direction you are facing, which will help you direct the light faster. Okay, now that we're done with the puzzles, let's move on to the most complicated room in Raid 3. Okay, this is gonna be doozy, so let's get started. Akkha, without a doubt, I think this is the best designed room out of all. I would honestly even go as far as to say that Akkha's room is more well designed than the final boss in some ways, but that's my personal opinion. First things first, drink your salts, drink your brews. The good thing about chugging brews now is that the salts will immediately restore all your stats, so you don't have to worry about having low stats, because every 15 seconds the salts will boost your stats up to full again. You will always start Akkha's room with magic, as he always plays range and melee once you enter. How Akkha works is that every time you damage him for 20% of the HP bar, the 4 shadows will appear in each corner. As soon as the shadows appear, your job is to take them down as fast as possible. You can start however which way you want. Doesn't matter which shadow you attack first. What does matter is that once the first shadow is done, you only, and I mean only, stay in that square of the room. Yes, as you can see, the room is divided into 4 squares, the boss has 4 phases, we're kinda getting there, right? Now, Akkha will also swap prayers after every 60 seconds, and it works like a combat triangle, so in the start it's range and melee prayer and use magic. If it's magic and range prayer, use melee against it. Now, Akkha himself will also swap attack styles as soon as he swaps prayers. The best way I can describe how to pray against Akkha would be to kinda cheat. Whichever prayer is on top of Akkha, that is the one you use as well. So here we see using range prayer on top, which means he's doing range attacks against me. And the final special attack that many players struggle with is the Simon Says minigame. Akkha teleports away and the symbols on the ground start shining in the specific order. Your job is to remember that order and be on that specific square at that specific time. Oh my god, that was hard to say. As you can see from this, it says yellow, black, yellow, and white. So what I have to do is stand firstly on the yellow square, because all other 3 are dangerous. Then on the black one, back to yellow, and then white. Once that special attack is over, I see Akkha has magic prayer on top of him, so the first thing I do is protect from magic to ensure I take minimal damage and keep focusing the shadow. I need to get the shadow's HP bar to 0 before the timer on the sand clock on the walls runs out, or I take a lot of damage. Now, I can only attack Akkha in this square of the room, and every other square Akkha becomes invisible. because this is the square where I destroyed the first shadow. I swapped my attack styles based on what Akkha is wearing. By the way, a really simple way to remember what attack style you're supposed to use. It's never random. You start attacking with mage, then you attack with melee, and then you attack with range, and then back to mage again. And you keep using the 3 combat styles like in a repeated process. Mage first, melee second, range third, and then back to mage. And so on and so on. Also, another pro tip for Akkha: if you don't know what to pray next, it will always 100% be the prayer that Akkha uses as the under prayer. So here we see the top prayer is melee and the under prayer is range, which means the next protection prayer I have to use is range. And since I'm using range prayer, I know I also have to use melee attack. So none of this is random, it's in set intervals like combat triangle, so you can always be prepared to what comes next. And that is what you do. The entire goal of this boss is to take away 20% of the HP bar, go to next square, take care of the shadow, stay on that square until you take another 20% of Akkha's HP bar, and you keep moving forward until all 4 shadows are taken care of. Meanwhile, you get 2 special attacks. When your character is black, I highly recommend you just don't move, as you're gonna make your life so much harder, and that's the entire special attack. You stay still and nothing bad will happen to you. And the other one is Simon Says, so you just have to memorize the squares you need to stand on while the special attack is happening. I know this is a lot of information to take in, and some of the mechanics are gonna be different here depending on what invocations you're using, or if you do this with a team. And once you destroy the final shadow, we get to the last phase of Akkha. You see, the fight isn't over once Akkha loses 100% of his HP bar. Instead, he returns to life with 20% HP and now only vulnerable to melee attacks. 2 things to remember here. Try your best to dodge out the white orbs and dump your specs. This needs to be fast. Also, protecting from magic will make you take about 30% less damage from the orbs. This is the most chaotic time of the fight, and oftentimes people struggle here the most. Keep your HP bar high before you start the final phase. Protect from magic, dump your spec, it's that simple. Congratulations, you just completed Akkha. Time for our final and last room. Now the best way I could explain Baba's room is to-do on top of to-do. I think this room is unnecessarily long compared to the rest of the puzzles in Raids 3. It's nothing innovative. If you know anything about Raids 2, there is this exact same room there, except with a different skin. They could have definitely improved this room or make it even more interactive, but essentially what you do here is take potions from one side, take a hammer from the other side, and in solos you have 2 tasks you need to complete, while hordes of monkeys come at you. One task is repairing the roof support pillars on the side of the room with the hammer, and the other task is to use the neutralizing potion on the vents if the skulls show up there. The red skull directs you on what task you have to do. Meanwhile, there are hordes of monkeys spawning in the room, and once again we have to follow the combat triangle. The melee ones, aka the red ones, are weak to magic, the green ones, aka the ranged monkeys, are weak to melee, and the blue ones and the shamans are weak to range. Your priority of what monkeys to focus first goes as follow. Always, and I mean always, focus the shamans first, because they can spawn smaller, annoying monkeys. Second to focus are the cursed monkeys who leave a trail of venom behind them. As you can see, I am venomed right now, and it definitely starts to stack up to a point where you could spend multiple brews just to survive this room. And then after you dealt with the shamans and the venom baboons, you focus the melee, magic and ranged ones. There are also volatile baboons whose entire task is to walk up to you and explode, dealing up to 30 damage. I tag them so they stand out more, but even now I still sometimes tank a few hits. And of course, let's say together, we blame Jagex for that. Good. So repairing the roof support and neutralizing vents is actually secondary task here. The main task is the one I just described. You will have a total of 10 waves of monkeys coming at you at set intervals, and as soon as you dealt with them, the room is completed. Now, I've seen people complete this room in less than 2 minutes. I've also seen people go up to 5 minutes if they mess up. It varies entirely, and there is a lot of room for error here, as there are a lot of tasks to complete. Okay, that was our last puzzle of the raids, and now it's time for the last boss. Eat your salts, brew up, and let's get ready to rumble. Pray melee and use a stab weapon. If you don't have a good stab weapon, Baba is also weak to range, which kinda works here. Again, the mad geniuses behind calculating all of this has said that stab is the best option, but range is the second best. While not in special phase, Baba has 3 attacks he uses. The first and the most dangerous attack is the rock wall attack. Large piles of rubble will appear in the room, and your job is to stand next to the pile of rubble when Baba throws a massive boulder at you. If you don't stand near the rubble when the boulder hits you, you take massive amounts of damage that can be up to 40 or 50 or even 60 HP. Standing next to the boulder, however, will cause you to almost completely neglect the damage, and instead the pile of rubble absorbs it. The second one is Shockwave. Baba will slam the ground on the tile you are standing on, and that slam will spread out. After a few seconds, Baba deals 5x5 AoE attack. The damage you take depends if you stand in the center of the shockwave or the corners. This is the hardest one to notice, as I'm guessing Jagex wanted to make an animation for this attack, but just forgot about it or removed it, so now the shockwave just like kinda appears out of nowhere and there is no indication for it, so you just have to look out for it. Baba has 3 phases, but they all repeat. What Baba does is once he falls to 66% of HP, you go into special phase, where you get knocked into the bottom of the room. There he starts throwing boulders at you and you have to use ranged attacks to target the boulder that seems cracked, compared to the rest boulders. That's it, you dodge out the way and you are good to go. Now it does take time to get used to, and you're likely gonna mess up at one point. My recommendation would be not to rush this part and take it slow. Pay attention to the next boulder ahead of you and you're good to go. And the final special attack for Baba is when he spawns few baboons to cause havoc on the room. These baboons attack with range. They shift aggression depending on whatever they want to attack, and they must be dealt with immediately. As you see right now on this clip, for your entertainment purposes, I decided to completely ignore the baboons on last phase, and I ended up almost not being able to complete this room. It is so important to deal with the baboons immediately, as they can destroy the sarcophagus, which in turn will start blasting out lava that deals extra damage and removes your prayer points. I was struggling here, don't be like me, okay? Deal with the baboons as soon as they spawn, otherwise you're gonna have a bad time like you see in this exact clip. And that's it with Baba, you get him to 66%, you do the Rolling Stone special attack, you get him to 33%, you do it one more time and then you end the room. Make sure you at least stay close to the big pile of rubble at all times to ensure you don't take massive damage from the boulders, and look out for the shockwave that to this day has no animation. Congratulations, you completed all 4 challenges in raids. You are an absolute beast and I am proud of you. Now, for the final time, we will get some help from the spirit in the lobby. Like I said before, I will take the life option here. As you can clearly see, we're not looking so good on supplies, and this will guarantee me full inventory of supplies. Not to mention, we will get ambrosia, which I will explain soon. The 4 silk dressing we got are bandages that heal you for 100 HP over the course of 1 minute, and they have 2 doses. The 3 crystal scarabs have the same effect, but instead of healing, they restore prayer points over time. Total of 72 prayer points in 24 seconds. We already know the rest of the supplies, so let's talk about ambrosia before we start. In simple terms, it's a panic button. It fully heals all your HP, all your prayer, even overheals you, gives you extra prayer points, run energy and cures your poison and venom. With one click you could potentially heal over 100 HP with this. It is absolutely bonkers and a godsend for players who are learning raids, as this panic button could be the difference of making the run or not making it. And I got 4 of them, so we're good to go. Before we start, I genuinely believe this is a skill. I'd like to go over inventory management. Why I think inventory management is an actual skill in game is because I can't count how many times I've not been able to finish the raids because something in my inventory is in the wrong spot. Whether it's brews, ambrosia salts, spec weapons, whatever it is. I feel like having a good inventory management before you start the boss is one of the best ways you can ensure to actually complete it. Everything is exactly where they're supposed to be. Once you're ready, begin the final boss. The first phase of the boss is the big wonky obelisk in the middle. Now, as soon as you start, you want to stand in front of the orbs on the left side of the room. What the orbs do is they power up the wardens on both sides, and once the wardens have enough power, they deliver a special attack. Why am I voluntarily taking damage here is because I delayed the warden's special attack on one side. You see, soon enough we will get the red disco balls and yellow disco balls. To avoid them coming at the same exact time, I have to delay the yellow disco balls long enough so they are out of sync with the red ones. Now that both discos are done so, I will eat my first dose of silk dressing to get 100 HP back in the next minute while also DPSing the boss. Now, we don't have stats on the obelisk, but the most often type of damage I've seen people use is melee here. You can use ranged as well, I don't recommend mage. Also feel free to dump all your special attacks on the obelisk to get over this as soon as possible, because the longer it goes on the more wardens charge the special attacks and the more damage you will take, so DPS is really important on this phase. There are 2 more special attacks in solo modes. These are just 2 hits you have to face tank and there is no way around them. In teams however it's different. For the simplicity of the video we're not gonna go into teams, but in simple terms, one special attack you spread out with your team and the other one you have to group into one tile. You keep repeating the process until the obelisk is down. Congratulations, phase 1 of 4 of the final boss is completed. Let's move on to phase 2. Now, since we stand on the left side of the orbs, the left warden will not spawn here, and instead 100% of the times the right warden will spawn. Why this warden is better for us? Because it doesn't deal any melee damage and only uses range and magic if you stay away from it. The other warden uses all 3 styles of attack. The warden magic basic attack is a red skull, and the warden's range basic attack is a greyish brown skull. It also uses different auto attacking animations depending on what attack it does. So the magic basic attack is when he charges his right hand back and shoots out the fireball, and the range basic attack is when he just howls this beige color skull at you. As you can see, he will always on the first phase protect from range and melee against you, so you always start DPSing with magic like you did in Akkha's room. Now, while all of this is going on, the obelisk you just took down starts occasionally firing out special attacks, and there are 3 of them. The first one you see right now that just shoots lasers up from the floor. I highly recommend you mark the dial I am standing on, as this is in my opinion the easiest way to dodge the laser. The first laser will never get to you, and the second laser you just move 1 square away. Now the warden will also do special attacks. I feel like we're in a special attack inception right now. Everything is special. The special attacks this warden will do has 3 variations. Firstly, it will disable your protection prayers, and secondly, it will fire out a projectile which is either a blue orb, a white arrow or a red sword, and you have to protect accordingly, either mage, range or melee. If you don't, you take a lot of damage. Shocking, I know. The second special attack of Obelisk is a red windmill that does similar things to the first special laser special attack. Oh my god, even I am going crazy. There are red pools coming out of the floor that go like a windmill around the obelisk, but instead of stopping, they don't. Yep, they just keep going around in circles until the full circle has been reached. The best way to around this is either go with the windmill in the same direction, or when it gets close to you, time it so you go to the opposite sides and miss the mark, which I prefer doing as it doesn't compromise my position. Now that we dealt enough damage to the warden with magic, the warden's core will pop out, and that is the only way to damage it. The core will be your favorite part of this, as you will always max hit with melee on it. I highly recommend using melee here, and here we see how beneficial it is to actually take melee switch with you like Abyssal Whip or Dragon Scimitar, as I am only hitting 24s right now, but I could be hitting 30s minimum here if I had the right weapon. Typically it takes about 3 cores to fully get the HP of Warden down, sometimes it takes 4 times. So you repeat this exact process again, but this time you do it with range instead of mage, and back and forth you go. You have a mage phase, you have a range phase, every time you finish the phase, the core pops out. One special attack I didn't mention is the flying skulls that come out of the obelisk. How to detect those flying skulls is you will see a shadow on the ground, and there are 2 ways to avoid these skulls. Either run far away from it, or you run close to them. So there is this tactic where if you stand 1 tile away from the shadow, you will not take any damage from the skulls. A great way to avoid these obelisk special attacks completely. Now this does take some practice, so if you're unsure, I recommend first just try to stay clear of the red skulls, as if you take damage from them, it could disable your prayers, so it's an easy way to get stacked out, and we don't want that. So that's kinda it. You start with mage, you get the core out while dodging all the special attacks I mentioned above. You damage the core as much as possible with your best DPS weapon. A great tactic people use is Dragon Dagger special attacks, as you will always 100% hit max damage, and once you dealt with the core enough times, swapping between mage and range phases, you will take it down. Which leads us to final room, the entire raids. Oh my god, I am about to lose my voice. Okay. Whew. So here we go. Take your swords, eat up, use silk dressing, crystal scarabs, whatever you need. Now I am gonna use range there on my final phase as Ruby boss enchanted actually works wonders on this boss. Range overall seems to be the style people favor the most, with melee being second best. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, I highly recommend getting the crystal bow as I feel it is the perfect mid-level ranging weapon to do raids with. It's literally budget bofa, a weapon players often use in normal and expert mode raids. Now, how this last phase works, as you already see, is that I have divided the room into 3 different sections with tile markers. I recommend you do the same or at least something similar. It will help you immensely to move around the room and know where to stand without getting confused. The first phase of the final room is simple. The boss does ground attacks on either left side, the right side or the middle of the room. And that's where you stand. It will always start shaking on the ground on the left side. By the way, I am using sides as like looking at the boss, so if you look straight towards the boss, that is our left and right sides. This makes it easier instead of using the compass, which I find many people struggle with. So the boss always shakes the ground on the left side first, then it shakes the ground on the right side of the room, and finally it shakes the ground on both sides, which means you have to stand on top of the marked tiles in order to not take damage. And this is pretty much the entire phase 1 of this room. You just keep attacking, avoiding the ground shake, and then the red skulls appear again, our dearest friends. The red skulls in this phase are actually here to help you. You need to attack them immediately when they appear. They can only be attacked with melee attacks and have 1 health. There is no weapon cooldown on attacking them, so choose whatever melee weapon you have in your inventory and get rid of them ASAP. Now you noticed we also got Zebak's phantom staring down at us on the left side of the room, and he has started firing out projectiles. So since in phase 2, last room, we defeated the right side warden, we get Zebak's and Baba's phantoms. If we chosen the other warden in the last room, we would have gotten Akkha's and Kephri's phantom. But I feel like these are much easier and less chaotic than the other ones. Just like in Zebak's room, take this as a mini chat. Pray either mage when it's red water jugs or a range when it's big black powder coming at you. I repeat the process on the right side. Left side, middle, when the ground is shaking. That's it. Okay, so far so good. Once the third time skulls appear, Baba's phantom will also appear. And Baba will start throwing big boulders at you. This is not that difficult to dodge, although at this point it might come overwhelming, as you do have to think about multiple things at the same time, like praying correctly against Zebak, avoiding the shaking ground, and also avoiding Baba's boulders. As you will soon see, even I struggle with this from time to time, and I am getting close to 100 KC on normal rate, so this is nothing to be ashamed of. The overall picture stays the same. Right side, left side, middle, pray against Zebak, dodge Baba's boulders, repeat. We're almost there, we still have 1 more red skull phase, and then we get to the final enraged mode. You're doing a fantastic job, keep going. Now when the warden reaches 5% of its health, it will immediately heal back to 20% of its health, and this is where the final stand of our fight begins. The very final phase. Warden will also restore all its defensive stats back to normal, so if you used any special attacks that lowered Warden's defense beforehand, now they are back to normal. It doesn't make the ground shake anymore, but instead you will start to see lightning bolts coming out, bam, 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 look out, look out. No, I'm joking. But yeah, the room starts to get smaller and smaller. Zebak's phantom and Baba's phantom attacks triple in speed, and it's important to just go all in here. Now, one of my strategies I like to use is just stay on the left side of the room, so I can see what attack Zebak is gonna use next, because I know Baba will always throw the same boulders at me no matter what. And the other strategy I use is that I know Warden's click box is so massive, so I don't even have to look at the Warden. Instead, I look at the ground in front of me and click on the tiles that don't have shadows in them to avoid any unnecessary damage. I know for a fact that through all of this chaos and frantic movement, there is actual possibility to take 0 damage in this room if you do it correctly. Look at the tiles you're using, look at what attack Zebak is doing, and keep moving. You have 4 doses of ambrosia, so if you feel like you're getting low HP, just do that 1 click and immediately go back to full HP. Use silk dressing, use crystal scarabs, use swords. Use them all if you have to. This is the perfect place to dump your final spec bar, and through all of this chaos, just try to keep DPSing and look out for the ground tiles that don't have shadows in them. If you manage to somehow through all of this actually do enough damage for the final 20% of Warden's health, Congratulations, you actually managed to complete Raids 3 solo. For the first time on your account, you are an absolute beast, my man. The gear I'm using cost approximately 1 million GP, the stats I have are 70s, and this was a perfect example that you don't need endgame gear or stats to do raids. You can't start right here, right now, and if you're lucky enough, unlike me, you could end up with a purple color around that sarcophagus that could grant you a sword that costs over 300 million GP, potentially changing your account forever. Or a ring that currently is worth 50 million GP. And even if you don't get any purples, you will always get on average about 400k from one raid. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And that was it. One final thing before we go. Once you've completed your first raid, go outside and talk to the 3 NPCs here. Skip some dialogue until you get to a point where you can ask the question, so what happens now? After which the NPCs will depart. Then you talk to Mesa and she will also depart while giving you a one-time lamp that gives you 50k experience in any combat skill. Congratulations. Again, congrats my man. I hope you enjoyed this guide as much as I enjoyed making it. This took a very long time to put together and I'm glad I could have helped. If you stayed this long, you are an absolute beast and I love you so very much. Consider liking the video, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in a few days with another video. Love you. Bye. Mwah.